You're watching the Estate Planning Series, Home for Holidays Tough Conversation Edition, with Olivia Smith, co-founder of the SR Law Group.
Received a Bachelor of Arts degree in political science. She also has a graduate degree from Loyola University, New Orleans College of Law. Olivia has been practicing law for 14 years, starting out in criminal defense, but transitioning into estate planning, elder law, and probate as a result of a personal family experience. She is the owner and partner of SR Law Group, a boutique law firm that focuses on estate planning, elder law, and probate in the Black community. She also is the co-host of Black Parents Aging, a podcast that helps children of Asian parents navigate a changing landscape. Olivia is very active and engaged in her church and community. Olivia also serves as the probate and estate chair for the Georgia Association of Black Women Attorneys and on the advisory board of Changing How Individuals Prosper, CHIP.
Thank you. I will be introducing Gina McKnight, who is a committed, service-oriented professional who has aligned both her direct patient care, personal life experiences, as well as professional business experiences into a company that serves aging adults and their loved ones through their golden years, Graceful Living. Through her caregiver training, advocacy, and education on senior resources, Ms. McKnight aims to empower care partners with the tools that they need to bridge the gap in healthcare services. Her client-centered approach is focused on one goal: to improve or maintain an individual's quality of life so they're able to age gracefully with both dignity and comfort. Respectively, Graceful Living's core values are to serve first with compassion, respect, and gratitude. In addition to caregiver training and advocacy, Ms. McKnight has worked in the field of advertising, marketing, business development for corporations such as Essence and Ebony magazines, Universal Health Services, and WellStar Health Systems. She's earned a Master's of Science in Applied Gerontology from Brown University and Bachelor of Arts in Journalism and Mass Communications from the University of South Carolina, and has been a licensed realtor since 2006. She currently resides in East Point, where she serves as the Vice Chair of the Planning and Zoning Commission Board, as well as the active member of the Kiwanis Club of South Cobb. In her spare time, she enjoys expressing her creativity through music and the arts, along with spending time with friends, family, and her fur baby, Chewy.
Yay! Thank you so much, Olivia. Hello, I am Gina McKnight, and I am going to introduce to you guys Miss Tisha Mitchell Curry. She began her real estate career in new home sales and has expanded her business to focus on assisting home sellers. Tisha has made a high-level commitment to her real estate education, having been mentored and coached by several of the most highly acclaimed real estate coaches in the industry. She earned her Bachelor's of Science degree in Sociology from Western Michigan University, a Master's of Science degree in Administration from Central Michigan University, and a Master's of Science degree in Real Estate from Georgia State University. Highly educated woman. The multi-million-dollar sales agent is a certified new home sales professional and holds the military location professional designation. Tisha is a past member of the Douglas County Board of Tax Assessors. She's a real estate coach to top producing realtors and teaches real estate professionals principles at Georgia State University Robinson College of Business. She has a special interest in military families. She is certified as a peer mentor with the Wounded Warrior Project and volunteered as an instructor with the Army Community Service Program. And in her spare time, she enjoys entertaining at home with friends, live music, line dancing, and traveling. Tisha is a former teenage mom who believes through faith, hard work, the only limit to your potential is your own limiting beliefs. Tisha Mitchell Curry.
Thank you, Miss Gina. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. So this is probably this is our 11th month of this series, and we know that everybody is going home for the holidays, and we don't always want to have the talks. So we're gonna kind of give you some tips and tricks and strategies to have some kind of talk with your family as we go home.
Multiple talk.
It's not just about the turkey and the macaroni and cheese. We need to start having some serious conversations. If you have followed this series, what you're aware of is that a lot of times when a loved one passes away, we're stuck in a situation simply because we didn't have those important conversations. And so what we want to do here is just kind of bridge that gap. We'll start, and we'll do this kind of in a round robin sort of way. And Olivia, do you want to start, or do you want me to start off with the questions?
Okay,
I'll start.
Okay, go ahead.
No problem. So what we know for sure is that, whenever you're at a table conversation, everybody wants to talk about, not everybody, but a lot of people want to talk about what's happening in real estate. What's going on with the real estate market? And how you start that conversation is, you can really figure out how many of your family members are actually homeowners. Okay? Who actually owns a home? And sometimes we learn in our families is that we thought grandmama owned a home, but it might actually really be Uncle Joe who actually owns the home. So it might be that conversation. A lot of times we're so secretive, and we've just done that historically. And we know why that has happened, but family members just don't talk about who owns what, right? A lot of times we don't want to have a confrontational conversation about what's supposed to be happening when a loved one passes away or becomes incapacitated. But let's just start with that one question. Who's a homeowner? You own a house? Okay. And then ask the next question. If something happened to you, what would you want to do? And you can do this in a situation where it is just kind of light conversation. You don't have to really get too deep into it. I know when we get to the holidays, there's some rum punch, and people get drinking and having conversations. And, it has a tendency. So I don't know. I can't speak for other families. I can just tell you what happened in my family. That's what's going to happen in my family. And ain't nobody really going to have too many conversations about anything. But what I know for sure is that just on this past Friday, my aunt just passed away. And fortunately or unfortunately, she was living in an assisted living facility prior to her passing, and her family had the opportunity to take care of her estate prior to, but that's not always the case. And unfortunately, we see oftentimes in African American families, we see a lot of family members passing away through the holiday season. So it's one of the things where you just want to have a light conversation about, do you own a home? And if so, what's your plan for if something happens to you? And you don't have to really go much further than that. That is my question number one with regard to real estate. Olivia, you're up next.
So I think also you have to set an intention when you're going in. So what we don't want to do, and when I do these, I really focus on like your grandparents and your parents, because we really focus on senior clients. And so when you're going home to grandma's house or you're going home to your parents' house, I think it's important to start the conversation. There is a long list of things that you should know or you should have the information on. You're probably not going to get all of that information at this first time. The goal is to start the conversation and then to keep the conversation going. There will be multiple conversations about many different things. And so to Tisha's point, you want to start that conversation as light and fluffy as you can, because you want full participation. And so one of the things that is important when you go home to your aging loved one's home is to just be observant. Sometimes we have one-track minds. We're there for the dressing, the turkey, maybe a spades game, some fellowship, and then we're back out the door headed home. And so it's an opportunity, number one, to be observant before you even start a conversation, to look and see, what's going on, to observe how your mom or grandma or granddad is getting around, how they're speaking, how they're interacting, how I was on a workshop one time and someone told me that a good indication was looking in that refrigerator and seeing, how it looked in there. Are there things that are old that aren't being thrown? So there is some observation that you can be doing on your own because you're thinking about that and you've set that intention in your mind. For my part, question number one would be asking your loved one whether they have done any estate planning, right? Do they have a will? Do they have a power of attorney? Do they have a healthcare directive? And A, if they do, yay. 1A would be, how long ago did they do it? So if they did it 30 years ago when you were a child, it probably needs to be updated. So how long ago did they do their estate planning? And 1B would be, where is it? Because that's the other thing. Where are they keeping it? Because if they do it, but no one can find it, it doesn't count. And so that would be my question. If I were going home to talk to loved ones. Gina?
Yes. I'm going to be piggybacking off of a lot of things that you guys have said. In my role as a gerontologist, it's down to the details, right? When it comes to information that's needed. How to have that conversation, very similar to what Olivia said, set that intention ahead of time. Of course, you don't want to have it over Thanksgiving dinner, but over the holidays, it's a great opportunity because you're there at the home and everyone can start searching for things that's just all over the place. So here's what I mean. Number one, is very basic, but you will be surprised how many people don't have this information. And that is your personal information, your mom's personal information, parents, whoever. What is their full legal name? You may have Aunt Anime or Junebug, but you don't know Junebug's last name, middle name, real name. That might not even be his real name. So what is it? It sounds so simple, but you'll be surprised when that question is asked when something major happens. What's their full name, date of birth, social security information, burial information, PIN numbers to the cell phone. I mean, sometimes just being able to get in contact with other people who they may be close to that you have no idea about. I mean, someone has to be the keeper of this information. It could be central. It doesn't have to be over the holiday. Of course, this information that I'm listing is stuff that you want to get and start thinking about and collecting over time. But these are things that no one really thinks about until it's necessary. Wills, divorce decrees, marriage license, birth certificates. Where is it? It comes up, and to save, your loved ones the time and the struggle looking for it all, going through several boxes when it's actually needed, especially if there's an emergency, have it together. And you can put it all together in one central place. Whatever it is that you guys decide on, these are the things that you want to start collecting. Medical information. Simple as insurance card. So many people get confused. Is it Medicare or is it Medicaid? What's the difference between the two? Is there a card for it? Is there, what is the actual number for the insurance? Is it managed care? Like, it's so much, but it's basic when it comes to an emergency or when something actually happens. So, just start having this information. We tend to be, like what Tisha said, we tend to be really secretive sometimes within our families. You know who you can trust with the information. Mm-hmm. So go ahead and start collecting it, have it together for them, and at least if you don't have to necessarily hand it over, but at least let that person know where they can find it. The secrets that we hold, I'm not quite sure why, but in emergency, it could actually save your life when it comes up. Financial information, personal property information, Tisha touched on that. Even memberships, let's just say, this is, of course, when it's maybe your grandparent or whoever, but memberships, like your online accounts, your bank accounts, like all this stuff that you have and you are the only person that knows the information to it. So if someone needs to have access, how do they do it? I can tell you guys a scenario, like I was working with a patient in the hospital, Medicaid, no family, no, friends came through. I think the guy was homeless. He was able to get care, but there was certain information that was needed. An online bank account so he can just, log in so we can get the financial information in order for him to qualify for the Medicaid. It's a process to get all of that stuff. There's so many security measures that are in place right now where you have to have 2, 3, 4, 5 steps, right? to confirm that you are or have access to the information. So at least getting it together so that you're known where it is, to make it easier for everyone else to be able to take care of you. So those are some hot buttons for me.
And I'll just say that to what Tisha and Gina said, chances are, especially if they're older, they're not going to be just excited to provide you with that information. Like they're not going to want to, because generationally, like that particular generation is pretty secretive. Like, don't you in their business? They feel like there are certain things that everybody don't need to know about, right? Yeah. And so I think it's important to go in with that understanding and not to be aggressive and make it a combative situation, but explaining to them the different scenarios as to why having, and even if it's not you, because you can't trust everybody. They may trust somebody else, but why it is important for someone that they trust to be able to have access to that information. And it may take a little coaxing. And so don't get frustrated if you ask or engage the first time and you get shut down. If at first you don't succeed, try again. You have to kind of keep chipping until you kind of chip away enough where they are willing to give some info.
That's great information. And one of the things that I really want to point out, oftentimes in families, there is one expectation of one family member to be a caregiver, making medical and daily life decisions. And there is a different family member that they may deem as making business decisions. And they really do need to be able to have a conversation together. And if I'm being transparent right now, I am actually on my way home to Michigan this Thanksgiving because my mother is not in great health. And Michigan is not the most fun place to be in the wintertime. So I'm feeling like, let me get on up in there before that wintertime comes and just shut me down. So let me go ahead and get in there for Thanksgiving, because it's time for us to really have these conversations. And this is an opportunity. Even I know for me, especially, I think Gina mentioned about even finding passwords, right? These things change so rapidly. I don't know if they do online banking or whatever. They have a system. I know for me, I have a spreadsheet that has a password on it that has all my passwords, and without it, I don't know what my passwords are to what, but I do know how to reference it. So this might be a conversation that you have with your family members about, where are your passwords? Where are your accounts? But one of the things that I do always when I go home is I just do what I call a twirl. And like Gina mentioned, the first thing I look for is what's in the refrigerator. I know if that refrigerator is stocked, they're okay financially. Once it starts looking like it ain't quite right, then I know to ask them additional questions. One year, and as a real estate agent, one of the things that you can start looking for around the house is repairs or deferred maintenance. I went to my parents' house one day and I realized that they had like trees growing out the gutters. I was like, oh, okay, we need to have a conversation about that, because what I knew, especially in Michigan, is that was going to cause longer problems up the road. So it's not just necessarily about who owns the house, but start looking at deferred maintenance, some things that maybe start off a little bit minor, but you notice you go back over there and it's still a problem. Do you notice a leak? Do you notice that something hasn't been repaired? Is something not working? Those will start to give you an indication that maybe that home is getting to be a little bit more than what they can manage right now, or maybe they just need a little assistance, and you can see it and you don't have to necessarily confront them one-on-one, but pay attention, because it's an indication of maybe there might be some other issues that might be going on along the way. And so there are ways that you can have a conversation that's just not head on, but you are starting to pay attention to certain things along the way that might give you an indication that maybe I need to explore something a little bit further. Maybe I need to have a different conversation. I know, especially for me, I had a family member who was the caregiver who, she had a stroke and all of her business was kind of all over the place, and we just kind of had to figure that out. And so, my goal is now that we kind of have a heads up that there might be some things happening that we need to start having additional conversations. And maybe they're a little bit tougher, and just like Olivia said, you don't have to go into it, straight in, straight for the jugular. However, you can ease yourself into conversations about what expectations, because oftentimes as family members, there are expectations about what we're supposed to do that we're just totally not aware of. We don't even have a clue that is what the family member is expecting of us, because it's never been communicated. So that might be the conversation. Bigger conversation is, what are your expectations of me if something happens to you? And then once you start with that conversation, you can have additional conversation or ask additional questions. So start with that. So that way you're not putting anybody on the defensive. You're not asking them to come, like, tell me all your business right now. Just say, hey, if something happens, what is it that you expect from me, so that I can be prepared and make sure that I'm ready, so that I don't let you down because I'm caught off guard. Olivia?
Oh, Liz, you muted.
You muted.
I think going along with that also is, so for instance, what if they haven't done their estate planning? Asking them, okay, well, if you were not able to make healthcare decisions for yourself, who would you want making those decisions? What would you want to happen in certain situations? If you weren't able to handle your finances anymore, who would you want handling that? I think it's important, especially with our older loved ones, to make sure that they have their say, that they get to make decisions that for themselves that they feel are suitable. I think a lot of times as people age, we sometimes treat them like they're children, and not like they're still adults, and still able to make decisions for themselves. So asking those questions of them, who would you want in charge? Who would you want making decisions for you? Even before you get to what those decisions should be. And I think that can also give you an indication, okay. And even, to Tisha's point, as you look around the house and look around, like, is mom moving a little slower? Like, do you remember her moving this slow the last time you were there? Is she having trouble getting up those steps? Now, are there trip risk? Are there all sorts of rugs? And, these are things for you to start observing, while you're at home, and questions to ask. Even, asking, hey, if you if there is a time you couldn't stay in this home, where would you want to go? Because some people are like, put me in the assisted living home. I do not want to be bothered with my kids and grandkids. I don't want to be a burden to them. I don't want to be over there. I don't want to be bothered with them. Put me in the assisted living or put me in the nursing home. And then other people are gonna be like, what do you mean what's happening? I'm living with my child. Like that's the plan. But at least then you know what in their mind is the plan that y'all haven't discussed yet, but they have just decided. And so I think oftentimes decisions are being made in silos, and we're not talking about that and coming to like a group decision, and it involves multiple people. And so I think perhaps the holidays is a good time to start those sorts of conversations as well.
I think one of the things that we need to be clear about is that holidays and even these tough conversations bring up family dynamics that we're often not ready to discuss. And so you have to kind of pay close attention to that. And so, you know, in our series before, Olivia has spoken quite a bit about how the intention for a parent is to leave a property to a particular family member. It might be, you know, the younger one or the one who needs the most help, but they are the least able to financially take over things in the event that something happens to your loved ones. And oftentimes it is the responsible family members like, they got to get out. I ain't taking care of them no more. You know, bum them used to take, like, so these are some family dynamics that you really are going to have to pay attention to. And in some, you know, some situations you have family members, the parents who want to leave, you know, a property in a different state to someone who has children and their own family planning. Like, okay, well, how's that going to work? How they gonna get back here to take care of this when they got their own situation going on? What is the interim plan? What are we doing in the meantime? What are we doing if they can't get here? What are we, you know, there's just certain things that you really kind of have to start looking. Is there a pot of money available to be able to maintain those things while we get through a process? And if there isn't, do you have the money available? And if you don't, what is going to be the plan? Because, you know, estate planning and having these conversations, this is not a simple process. This process, if not planned appropriately, can last for months or even years. And in the meantime, while you're working through these processes, you could be losing that home. You could be losing other assets. You could have a bank account that's frozen. There's all kinds of things that could be happening, whereas you may have a loved one who's feeling like they're being protective of their assets, when in actuality, they're not really considering the legalities of how things work. And they might be shooting their own self in the foot. Absolutely. And keep this in mind too, this is not a one and done. Our intention here is to start the conversation. It's not for you to go home for the holidays and leave with a full plan.
With a book.
No. What we want you to do this holiday season is to begin to have the conversation. And you're gonna get a little bit this time. You may get a little bit more the next time. You may get a little bit more the next time. But the conversation has started. And unfortunately, or fortunately, however you look at it, the folks that are on this call are the ones who really do want to get the business taken care of prior to there being an emergency. But we're the ones that know it's probably going to be an emergency to begin with, right? And so, you know, you have to understand kind of where your role is in this space. And sometimes you have to say to your loved one, if this were you, how would you feel if you were in this situation with the no instructions and no plan? And so then it stops becoming, you know, a battle, a test of wills, because we talked about that secrecy thing. And, you know, we always want to hold tight to our business. The other thing I want to say to you is to be patient with your other family members, because as we start thinking about aging loved ones, everybody's not able to handle it head on. So as I go to my parents' house, I know that I'm going to be able to have a conversation with them differently than maybe my younger siblings. Maybe they're not ready to see exactly where our parents are at this moment. Maybe they're not ready to deal with the reality of what having older parents means. Maybe they don't have the capacity to be able to add something else on their plate on top of them taking care of their own families. That is going to, sometimes these conversations are very triggering. We just want to dip your toe in it. Just dip your toe in it. Test the water, test the temperature, see how things are going. Because a lot of times in our families, if we don't start the conversation will not be had.
Correct.
No, that's true.
And, I know I'm heavy on the healthcare aspect of it all. And, you'll just be surprised. Like, so many people don't even know that parents are on medications. Or where their pharmacist is. It's just like basic information. You can kind of, while you're at the house, check out that medicine cabinet and see if you see any prescriptions. Sometimes they might get it confused when they're taking it. So, it's an opportunity for you. You're there, you want to have a great time with your family, but just be aware of things. It's the awareness and checking the environment and trying to do some, get some information on your own. Even who the doctors are, I know I can't stress it enough on how challenging it can be, but it's the baby steps. It's the baby steps, and it's very important.
And I will say to teach talking about, oftentimes, we're thinking, okay, we're going to mom or dad and they're going to be a challenge. Sometimes your siblings are the challenge because they still see mom and dad as mom and dad and how mom and dad was 20 or 30 years, and they're not ready to come to terms with, like, mom and dad are aging, mom and dad are ailing, like that. And so sometimes even before you get to the conversation with mom and dad or grandma and grandpa, having the conversation with your siblings, testing the water out with them, asking them, well, did you notice this the last time you were over there, the last time you visited, and kind of seeing, okay, do I have allies or do I have more hurdles because they are not ready to deal with real life, what's going on either. And so I think sometimes a strategy can be, taking it piece by piece instead of hitting it everybody at one time. And so maybe you did a little pre-work with the siblings before y'all got home for the holidays to just say, hey, we need to, be asking mom. We need to kind of be a united front. Did y'all notice, what was going on with her last time we were there, or last time you were there, and so that oftentimes too can be really helpful when you have partners who have the same intention and the same goal as you have, but you want to know ahead of time, okay, are these people, are they feeling the same way I'm feeling, or are they feeling differently? Are they not there yet? That is important information to know going into, and important information on how you may structure the conversation and what you may say in the conversation. Because not only do you not want to trigger mom or dad or grandma or grandpa, you don't want to trigger your brother or your sister either, who may not be there. And so awareness, and the more information you can kind of collect, the better. And then the last thing is, your people. You know who your people are. You've grown up with them. And so you can probably kind of pinpoint who's going to be playing what role. And sometimes you have to role play before you get there and say, okay, well, if I say this, like, who's going to say, and to make sure that you are covering the bases and the reason that you came and the reason that you started the conversation is achieved. And so there's a lot of different dynamics going on.
Yeah.
So it's definitely not the easiest thing, but it's really a necessary thing.
Right. And I have one last point too, with the information. It's a lot, and we're heavily focusing on mom and dad, grandma. You can lead the group with this and say, hey, I started collecting all of this information for you. Here's my information if anything were to happen to me, or if you've ever needed or whatever. And I don't know, maybe it'll be your brother, sister, whoever. And then it's like, oh, what is that? That's kind of cool. I never really thought about that before. Yes, I need to do the same thing, you know? So it's a way where you can just be the leader of the pack to get everyone to start thinking about themselves as well, and gathering the information. So it's my last little tip.
You're mute.
I see that. Thank you. To bring it all home is, you know, your family. You kind of know where they are as far as their personality is concerned, the family dynamics, how communication is. And ultimately, you are having this conversation to save yourself some angst and to save whatever the family members have built up to this point, right? And oftentimes we don't trust people because, you know, unfortunately, the few folks some of us have trusted over time have not necessarily been trustworthy. And so we have historically had to really kind of hold things close to us. And you know that. The intention here, though, is to start the conversation. Now, you ain't got to spend all Thanksgiving, you know, dragging everybody around the house, asking 50,000,000 questions, right? But it is to start planting seeds of what is the plan? What do we have in place? What do we have going on? Now, do so early before everybody starts drinking.
Definitely before they start drinking.
Before the games start, right? And you might have to speak to a husband and wife individually because they may not even be on the same page with regard to their wishes and what they'd like to see happen.
Or want each other to know what the other, yes.
You know stickers be coming out at the last minute, and you find some siblings and relatives and all kinds of stuff they nobody know nothing about. I mean, let's just keep it real, right? So in that respect, just see this as an information gathering phase. And again, Olivia had a wonderful point in, you be the leader. You can say, you know what, as a family member, this is what we're going to do for each other. And we're all going to participate in one shape or form, but you lead that conversation. You're leading by example. You're not just asking, you're not just, you know, drilling down, you're not just, you know, bombarding them with questions, but it's like, hey, I just really want to know what's happening. Are there any questions? You're more than welcome to put those in the chat, or you can raise your hand if you have any questions. Or actually, you can just speak. There's only a few of us.
I have a question. This is Ruth Bergen.
Yes.
I'm really grateful that you're having this session. I have kind of a reverse situation wherein I'm a solo agent with no children. And I've raised 2 children, my niece and nephew. And neither one of them has grown up, but one is about 35 and the other one is 41. And so I have been, I've done some advanced planning. On the other hand, my concern is, how do you approach the children in this case? The children being my niece and nephew, because we're talking about families here. And in my case, you know, they're my only family. So whatever advice you can offer, I would appreciate it.
Miss Ruth, what is the concern with approaching them? Are you concerned they wouldn't be receptive, or are you concerned that they're not ready to hear what you have to say?
Probably a bit of both, or quite a bit of both.
Well, I think some of our advice works in the reverse as well. And I would say, be patient with them. I would say, start the conversation, try to keep it as light and fluffy in the beginning as you can. I would say, don't inundate them with a lot of heaviness right off. And I don't know how close you are or how often they visit, but it could be something as simple as like when they're over, just showing them, hey, this is my safe, this is where I keep all my important papers. That's it for today. They know where to find the important papers. It may be another visit where you tell them, you know, this is my doctor, or this is where I keep my medicine. You might need to spoon feed them a little bit and make it not as heavy as like sitting down and having like this conversation. It may be things that you share with them in passing to get the information to them without them realizing, okay, like this is something serious that I need to brace myself for. You might want to approach it as just information sharing. This is where you can find this. This is where I do this. This is, you know, they may be more receptive to that sort of delivery, and it may keep it from being so heavy.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know if Gina or Tisha had anything.
No,
Yeah.
I think you nailed it. I think you nailed it.
I was just going to say, Ruth, it's amazing that you're on this call and you're thinking about it and planning for, you know, your nieces and nephews. So, you know, my advice, in addition to what Olivia mentioned, is, you know, when you're having the conversation, well, prior to having the conversations, is also just collecting everything and putting it all together. You know, you may have a spot for this information that only you know about. Let's just say, you know, your birth certificates and Social Security and your medical card, like you may know where it is in your wallet or wherever you place it, but they don't. So just starting to put everything in an organized space so it'll be easily found when necessary. But again, it's the same information, just keeping it light, keeping it simple, and it's more of just letting everyone just be aware. If anything happens, they at least know where to find it.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Are there any more questions? Okay. Well, we're going to wrap it up. Thank you so much for being on this evening, and continue to reach out. Our contact information is on our slides right here. So if you have a question for me or Olivia or Miss Gina, feel free to reach out to us. We are here for you, and we hope that you have a safe, prosperous, wonderful holiday season.
Yes.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Someone asked, will the recording be sent out? Yes, it is. We can send the recording out in case you missed the beginning, or for people who could not log on, but they registered.
Absolutely, Mr. Ryan. We'll get it over to you.
Okay.
All right.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Have a good night.
Thank you very much.
Oh, Gina.